How you doing? Hello everybody, welcome back to the Educated Colonel Snap channel. Today I want to do something fun, something interesting. I went through all of the seasons, made a little tier list for it, and just kind of compared, like, is this one of the best seasons, one of the strongest seasons, and how do the other seasons stack up? That was pretty interesting, so let's begin. So this is actually a pretty interesting thing to do, right? Just comparing. I haven't like fully looked through all the cards in the season, and I'm definitely interested to see what other people think in terms of like what they think is the most impactful, the strongest season. I definitely am pretty confident that this season has been including some of the most impactful cards. We still don't have the Mobius coming out today, I believe, so that is also another like big game changer. I think the big argument for this season is that Loki created its own meta, then Alioth also created its own meta, and we really haven't seen like add one card, meta shift, add another card, meta shift, like so dramatically, I think, in the game's history. So definitely confident, but as I'm looking through some of the other sets of cards, has actually been like pretty impactful ones, in my opinion. Like if we just look at this first one, right? Hitmonkey, Snowguard, Jeff Stegron. I would say Stegron ruins it, and also Snowguard was unplayable for most of its history. It's just this season where it's jumped up, but I do feel it's a disservice to say to use both, to say, oh, it was bad the whole time, so let's knock it some points, and also a disservice to say it was good the whole time, or it's good now, so it doesn't matter if it's bad every other season before. So I think a balance for this one's pretty good. Jeff obviously has been very, very impactful, arguably on like better than these, but as a whole, Hitmonkey is also pretty good. I think I'll leave it be. I'm willing to move as I look through the rest of these. This one, ooh, this one's pretty good. Nebula, Iron Lad, and High Evolutionary, pretty impactful cards. Howard is invisible. I feel like it's fine to like just ignore Howard and say, oh, this this card doesn't exist. Living Tribunals, blah. I feel, ooh, is it more impactful? Ooh, this is where it gets hard for me. Is there any really bad ones I can establish like a bad baseline? Like, is there anything in here? Ooh, damn. These are pretty bad, except for Zabu. Zabu was insane though. Damn, that's the problem, right? You have to weigh them all together, right? I would say like most of the history, except for Zabu, none of these cards are like that important. Like Sauron's good, right? But it's not critical. And then Dazzler and Shanna are pretty bad. And then Shadow King's okay now, but when it was released, it was also pretty bad. So is that going to be our worst? For now, I'm going to just say for now that's our worst. Just because even though Zabu, you can argue, is very good, the rest of the cards bring it down a lot, where you can't really say that for a lot of these other sets. Ooh, this one, December 2022, is pretty powerful, right? We have Silver Surfer, just a staple. We have Darkhawk, been a staple in the meta, and we have Null, really important. This is a very powerful set of cards too. Sentry, obviously not as good, right? But 3 out of 4 being very powerful is really good, and these are cards that are still played today. I would say Darkhawk, I would say a little bit worse with the changes, the consistent nerfs it's been getting, but throughout the history of the game, I would say that's been a very powerful season. Like if you got all of those cards during the season, you'd have a pretty good time um up till now. So that's pretty interesting. This February season does not excite me here. Like this one I could see, right? Modak is the best of the list. Say it as you know, take that as you will, but that's the best card in this list here. And then we have stature, which is okay, but not like it's very specific, very meta. Where Black Bolt, Jeff Stature was really important, but then it got nerfed and it's really fallen out of grace. So there was like maybe a month or so where that was like super relevant. But Ghost and Kang, really, Kang has not performed. Obviously, I'm happy it hasn't because I think it being in the meta is like Alioth level toxicity. And honestly, I've seen some Kang with Alioth now, actually. So yeah, like not happy about that. But yeah, is this worse than this? This is an interesting one here. Actually, they're close to me. Zabu's so good. That's my issue with putting Zabu as the worst, because Zabu's so good that it's hard to say, oh, it's the worst one. The discard engine is fine. It's not bad either. These I'm gonna leave them together for now. All right, next we have June. So June is the Ghost Spider, Silk, Spider Ham, and Spider-Man 2099. Obviously, Spider-Man 2099 has not found success. The other cards have been okay. This one's actually not that important. I do think Silk, Spider Ham are decent. How strong has the season felt as a whole? I have to put Zabu up here. Zabu is too good. I can't do it. It's so silly. But yeah, Zabu's carrying the rest of these for sure for me. Spider-Ham's not bad. It's just yeah. It had one season where it was good that it got nerfed, and then it's back, but it's not the same level. Yeah, I'm actually okay with this. Phoenix Force is definitely like the season is Legion is pretty impactful. And the other cards are not horrible, but they're not great. I think this is actually a fair placement. I actually had no idea where these were gonna go initially. I'm gonna leave it here for sure. And then here we have Dakin, Lady Dextrite, X23, Silver Samurai. Yeah, but I'm very interested to know what other people like, how much disagreement there is in the comparisons of the tier list. I'll put the link in chat so you can make your own here. Dakin is good. X23, but how like impactful has the season been? Right? Like that's my issue. That's what I'm looking at. Like how impactful has the season been? So like with that in mind, like does Zabu keep going up? Ah man. Alright. Like the Dakin Lady Deathstrike X23, the season has not been that impactful. Like I don't see much of it. Dakin I see. Dakin's been impactful. The rest of these cards are wishy-washy. Especially in the Loki meta. Really not seeing that much of it. And then Nimrod, the Nimrod season, definitely carried by Kitty. For sure. Kitty's in everything. But the rest of the cards are really bad. Like you could argue if you're looking at it as a whole, the rest of these October hasn't happened yet, so I'm gonna do this at the end. I want to really establish our baseline. I'm happy with this at the top. I'm also happy this here. May is pretty good. This is being carried by Jeff. This is being carried by Kitty. Like having Nebula, having High Evolution is very, very powerful. This might even be better, like more impactful. I think High Evolutionary plus Nebula has been very, very impactful. I'm happy with this. I'm happy with Jeff. Like, you can't put Jeff out. Like, Jeff has been very important. So is Kitty. And I feel like Zabu deserves it as well. I think Zabu's been so impactful as well. It's hilarious. It's like, what's the best card, and you're carrying your team, right? There's some, here's the teams, and then some are just being carried by some individuals, which is hilarious to me. Um, and it's funny, right? Because you would think the ones with 5 would do better on average, right? Because they have more cards. But yeah, this one, Legion's been good, but Legion got nerfed as well. And yeah, it's still playable, but not as like, oh my god, you're a Jeff level anymore. Right? Maybe as a 5/8, I would it'd be harder to argue. But you're definitely seeing less of it with the nerf, which I think is fine because the card was definitely too ubiquitous beforehand. So I'm okay with that. And then August season, really, except for Dakin, you're really not seeing that much of any of these. And then the bottom, like, there's nothing standout, I think, at the bottom. Like, Spider Ham is the one that could carry, but they nerfed it hard. Right, so it's a lot harder to justify. You have to be looking at current power as well. And Silk is good. Like, Silk's good, but is Silk meta defining? No, it's not. It's not at all. I'm actually okay with this. I don't want to get too I don't want to get too crazy, but yeah, like when we look at these cards overall, right? We do have September, Loki, Elias, like that's gonna be it's already been super impactful. And then we have the December. It's almost a year apart, right? The Darkhawk, Silver Surfer, Null, those 3 have been very, like, it's telling that these cards are still like Series 4. I mean, most of these cards are Series 4 or 5, right? But like, it's been a year, almost half, like more than a year. Well, not more than a year, but close to a year. And you still have them still Series 4 for a lot of them. So pretty interesting. And then I'm pretty happy with, I think I'm happy with this kind of take here, where you have I'm more looking at it than like which is the most powerful and like what has been impactful, what has been stood the test of time, and what's generally strong. What would you be happy getting all 4 cards? Like if you had this season pass cards, would you be happy, right? I think you'd be happy with Silver Surfer and Darkhawk. You'd be happy with High Evolutionary. You'd be happy with Jeff as well, but I can't justify, hey, Jeff is carrying this whole thing. You could say maybe Snowguard's a lot better now. And that's true. It's just hard to say. It's just hard to say, oh, Snowguard is good now, so now it's the best, right? Like it's been bad for every month but this one, right? Like it's like I can't really in good conscience say, yeah, you should be happy with that. You know, wait 9 months and it'll be good for you. But yeah, I'm gonna lock it in here. I definitely love to see what other people think in terms of how good or how impactful the other seasons been. And then as a fun thing, I want to talk about October. Right, October's coming up, and I do think like it's a whole nother discussion in terms of like how good are new cards, or new cards too good, right? Like that could be a whole video where we kind of discuss like what it used to be before, where you would have tons of cards that you could reliably skip. Honestly, like they weren't really that impactful. Like Dazzler, Shana, like those are all skippable. Spider, Shadow King, right, when it came out, very skippable. Sauron, you didn't even need. Like that whole January pass was just full of skips, right? And then even February, right, Ghost was skippable. Stature was honestly skippable. Kang was skippable, right? Like we just had cards coming out that you really didn't care about, but I think they've gotten better at releasing cards that affect the meta. You could argue, you know, very, very strong, but definitely cards that affect the meta, and it could feel an issue if you feel like you have to get every single new card to compete in some way. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I do think October's cards are pretty strong as well. Like Miss Marvel is just like a ton of power with a very small like criteria you need to compete. Gladiators are 3/8 in a lot of cases with some upsides. If you want, like, we don't have a 3/8 like that essentially. And a Nihilist is pretty funny. Like this card, I really wonder like how the meta shifts when it comes in. If you start having to like really worry about the Nihilist drop down, and then Martyr being a 2/6 also is really just a good baseline as long as you play around the effect, right? So all the cards seem pretty powerful, pretty playable. So definitely think they're starting to really get a groove of like what cards are going to be interesting for players. The issue is if it's too strong, right? And you just create low-key Alliance metas every season, right? Then it gets frustrating and then it gets annoying. So they definitely have to be careful with that kind of thing, because you don't want to be like, oh, it's, essentially it's power creep with new cards if that is the case. So, it's an interesting discussion. I wanted to do something fun today. Tomorrow we will have the Mobius first impressions after it comes out. I definitely still recommend it, like, especially with the meta going on right now. Like, it's pretty toxic, so I don't mind just grabbing it and trying to deal with it. Definitely think there's going to be a lot of counter decks, so rogue value is probably going to jump up a lot, things like that. So just be aware of that kind of scenario and just play it accordingly. So yeah. Anyways, thought it'd be a fun little video here. Wonder if I could make it a little bit bigger. It's big enough, right? Just some of the tier lists here. And feel free to make your own, and I'll see you guys in the next one, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be